Right, mic check. Careful your volume. What's going on, guys? Good afternoon. Welcome back. We've got 7 minutes. 7 minutes to go. Alrighty. We had some selling coming here through the tech side. With how the day's gone, we're about break even on the Nasdaq. S&P is right there as well, completely break even. Most of the points again coming from the small cap side, Russell 2000, getting a very similar sort of close that we've seen comparatively to when we get this sort of melt up action, which it's hard to call this a bit of a melt up, but I mean it's the same premise where during lunch you're melting up. This was points being put on a little bit quicker. We saw a lot of volume come in, a lot of demand, putting on new long positions. So this sort of downwards move that you see is very very similar to what we see in most days that you get a melt up, which is more of again, it wouldn't be so much of this type of rally here. The degree of the angle would be a little bit more rounded, and it would lead into this sort of price action. So I would say nothing out of the ordinary here. We'll see what we get for close with the last 6 minutes or so here, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Otherwise, we've continued to put more points on sort of the top of the list tickers that we've seen. There hasn't been really much to do in terms of changing things up. We've kept it pretty simple in terms of what needs to be managed. I talked about that a little bit. You don't need to make a miracle happen. A lot of these, besides the new positions that we entered this morning, possibly some of you entering some charts that you had missed out on a little earlier, I think there's a few examples of charts that you didn't necessarily need to be in until the demand started coming in pretty hot. I think something like Blink, this price action from the open, certainly if you weren't already in the trade, would have lended to being bought, right? We talked about that a little bit from open. This move is predictable once you see that demand come in from open. We watch that sort of pullback into this trend, and you see it coming, right? So some of that feels a little different than on most other days. So that was certainly a possibility. We talked a little bit about, obviously, pot stocks breaking through the next trend line, traded up to the next trend line. That was certainly a new trade that could be made, even though we've already been pushing it. So that was a transition point for us. Veru, another big day here. Again, talked about it from open. Again, if you're missing these trades, it's okay, but I think for a lot of you who continue to see this sort of move every single day, and we talk about it, and I bring it up every day, I think you want to be capturing this. Maybe there's some things we can go about, because these type of positions that happen, they are, I guess more difficult to make for a trade, but I think it's because it's a little bit too straightforward in the amount of points that are being put on. This is a 15% candle on the 15-minute for the open. Maybe that just feels like too much at the time, right? And that's where you're comparing charts across other charts when you really got to just be comparing it relative, right? You're on top of support here on the trend line. We talked about from open. Continue it. Just continue, right? Even if you continued the position from before, there shouldn't be really any questions of what you should or should not be doing there. Now, again, you don't need to capture the move, right? It's okay if you did not take this trade. If you're sitting in the trade right now, you don't know what to do. It's completely fine. But I think adding this type of style and the fact that we've seen these charts a lot recently, they're points to pick up. They're points to pick up, right? So it's something on the table that you can sort of incorporate. EH, another week, another breakout, right? How many times have I shown you this chart where it does this consolidation, breakout, consolidation, breakout, consolidate, breakout, consolidate, breakout, consolidate, breakout. Another EH entry here. This should be good for the rest of the week. Usually this lends to a nice trend to the upside, and it's pretty clear when the chart is done moving. So you end up actually not gaining as much on the sort of the tail end of things because everyone sort of understands when to get out of the position. But with that being said, 23% on the day is nothing to not write home about, something to write home about. QFIN continued up to the trend line. Again, these type of charts that continue this trend, these are bullish charts that a lot of the times you end up forgetting about because they just make 5-6% a day, never really do anything besides go up, and then you're like, you know what? kind of missed that move. And then another breakout happens out of the trend, and we talk about this where you get these trends that then lead to a breakout when it wants to get up to the supply, and then you've got no idea what to do up here. Again, these type of positions are hard, but it is nice to be able to capture a trend like this, or then capture this move because you see it breaking out of a trend, right? Trends go both ways. You've got price trading on like a trend line through here, right? You've got price trading on a trend line through here, but guess what? You also have price having resistance from this trend line. So when a break does occur, you need to realize that it's also breaking through its own resistance, right? That it's created from this channel in that trend, right? I think that's where there's a lot of forgetfulness through that idea as well. So that's certainly something that can be entered on a break there. Sometimes it's not going to happen, right? Sometimes it won't happen. It's never going to be perfect, but of course, that's a nice trade there. So that QFIN chart, like that a lot. Here's our closing action. Really not much going on at close here. Not expecting much after hours. I know there's a few other earnings charts, earnings coming in. I don't really care again about earnings. Doesn't really matter to me. We'll see where the price candles line up. We'll react to them. Doesn't look like much here. Again, I think it's all tech driven. All tech side. You're getting the same. This is leading right back to break even. So let's see. It should be exactly break even. Let's take a look at maybe a mega cap here. A little bit further on the downside. I just saw a 69 basis point move. Might close at 69 basis points down on the day. Again, this move, it was lending. You can actually see that from yesterday into today, that little bit of bid idea, and I talked about it. It did feel, and at least you could see it, that there were chances for the mega caps to using the values trend and the upside move that it was making for this to continue. Now, it's still a higher low. It's still moving towards the upside, but this sort of V move that we've seen on charts, right, that we see on small caps specifically, you're seeing it only one way here, and it's to the downside. It's to the downside instead of to the upside. Now, this move here, it's to the upside, but again, you do have some problems here that if you don't continue, you're trading on a trend here, but we all know what happens when you get this sort of move, and we draw this chart on the mega caps and tech quite a bit, especially recently, especially up here. We talked about it. This is sort of your makings of a bear flag in price coming back down. Now, over here, we talked about the possibilities if this doesn't hold, price coming down into here. Again, that was due to this timing in extreme volatility. With low volatility, it's likely that this just continues to trade with the rest of the market, which the market right now, the leader, again, being value, this should continue. We opened on support today on the Russell 2000. Really the best sort of, for a bullish outlook, the best thing that could happen was opening on support, continue to the upside, bid coming through. For a stop day, right, this is the stop day. This is a candle that's connected to your other price action. You had 2.5% on the day yesterday. You're expecting a bit of a take profit and stop day. It holds the trend line. That's bullish, right? So that should help. That should help over here. There's no reason why this can't now continue. I think that's a good sort of candle to have. Now you do have a bit of a, you do have a bit of an inside day. Yesterday you had the hanging man, on the NASDAQ. I mean, there's certainly some flavor there that, okay, it's going to only be Wednesday. You could certainly still have one more. We get those two candle stop days, or those two candle sort of moves where you get one take profit, two take profit, and then you go. We'll need to see what exactly it looks like, right? We'll see what it looks like. Again, value should continue based on what we've seen. I think there's a lot of areas that have more room that's going to help sort of the other large cap side, which would be something like banks with a positive day today, just breaking even, holding this, not even coming back down to the level, should be able to continue its move through its local high here. This type of thing should help on the mega side. In terms of individual charts to look at, we obviously talked about the sun power chart, so solar, clean energy all around, through semiconductors as well. We're linking these with semiconductors. They all made their moves. NVIDIA yesterday made its move. This position, or the point at which it held today, is certainly a good take profit day that you would stick into this position. There's no reason to exit this position. The thing I talk about a lot is that when you get this sort of this long upper shadow on just a take profit day, it should lend to more upside. Price attempted to go further to the upside off of a big buy day yesterday. Price is going to continue to go up there. Now, whether there's another lower candle here or not doesn't really change the fact that this is uptrending. And again, we see this in the entire semiconductor space, which we do connect solar with, along with clean energy, right? This sort of area. These all have done well today. And then EVs being a pretty big story today. I mean, I saw you guys talking a lot about EVs in chat. Besides Tesla, right? Tesla being a part of the mega caps being drawn back a little bit, right? So tech itself, through mega caps, Tesla being the fifth in line in terms of megas, these are getting sort of held back right now, right? And we understand that this does not need to move for the rest of your favorites to move. We had NEO finally breaking out today, which I just talked about the last 2 days, that if this does not make a move, we're going to exit the position. We get the entry. So from this entry here, it's worked out now. Really great points there. Again, upside potential is really there. Think about this trend that we were on before. Let's see if it continues here, right? Let's see if it continues here. There's a lot of points to be gained. I know there was some news and stuff news-based trading happening as well. But again, we don't care so much about the news-based. We care about what the price is showing us and only reacting based on that, whether it's news-based or not, right? The other big thing, again, has been bios. We've been really hitting or really sort of levering up on bios since last week. Bios have continued. I've talked a little bit about using them as sort of opportunity cost problems. You enter a bio, you capture the short-term gain through sort of a little bit riskier contracts because you know the whole sector's moving, so you can put a little bit more risk to get that reward because you know the underlyings are making larger moves, which, again, think right now, right? Think of February monthlies compared to March monthlies right now. Almost all March monthlies are making higher returns right now comparatively to February's, right? Just due to the fact they have more time. And the February monthlies need a larger underlying move to actually move the option, right? But if you do get the underlying move, well, then that risk is certainly paying for the reward. So there are still some bios that you can use that extra bit of risk to capture in a short-term essence because you're going to get in and out of that position. And you're using this to really fuel the rest of the positions, which we've talked about. And so there's a lot of examples of sort of the different trades that you're not even just transitioning within of itself, but into other parts of the bio sector itself, right? And we've seen a lot of different trades, so those continue to do well today. I see no reason why they shouldn't continue to do well, so I would continue to look for those trades. A good way to look at those is to use the short-term patterns and understand that based on what you see forming on that daily candle, maybe it's time to take profit on that position and look for another that's now ready to make its move because they're trading back and forth, right? We've seen a lot of that. So keep those ideas in mind. We talked about the top of the list here. Now, there are some other charts that we talked about today. Tal, I talked about the trend line here. This kind of break. Are there going to be alerts today, man? There were about, I did write down how many alerts there were. There were 29 alerts today. Now, if you didn't get them all, that's okay. I know I can do a little bit better. Maybe bring that up to about 50 alerts on a good day. Maybe we can get up to 50, and maybe we can type them all into chat and spam the chat with every single ticker name like we already do. 69, Brian says, okay, maybe we can get 69. Maybe with the help of all of the traders in the chat, we can get up to 69 alerts on the day. I didn't count how many alerts you guys gave out. I'm guessing you guys were around the same as me. So let's call it 30 and 30, call it 60. So we're pretty close to 69. Maybe a few more alerts, man. That would be great. Other than the fact that you said it was a take profit day and a stop day, so likely not going to be many entries, and you missed the other 100 alerts from yesterday. Other than that, though, there were some good alerts today. So this Tal trade was pretty good. I did like the gains that came from there. This lit chart is really interesting. If we just take a look at this quick, we did expect a big move coming out of it today. Now, you got the pop here at open. It's sort of dwindled down again. You can't really see well in the intraday chart, right? Because there's not much volume. This type of move is going to be interesting because we've talked about this sort of V action and then the price going. We'll see how that goes. Ford, big trade today. If you weren't already in Ford with the rest of us from yesterday, big move here. This is EV space now. We are considering Ford and GM purely EVs now. That's what we're going with. Because again, what are EVs? All EVs are speculation to the future that there's going to be value there, right? They don't even need to make cars. Tesla was trading for 5 years without making a damn car, right, to the upside. So we are going full EV sector mode on these charts. So if you missed the Ford trade, you're still having a trend, and I talked about it earlier, just to mention it again. It should be a bit of a continuation from this trend here, and it's nice that you can compare these two trends. The GM trade is a little bit more difficult, and I talked about it, and you can see the price action really reciprocating that idea that, yes, you have this trend here, and it's trading on it, but this is the trend from the before, and it's a bit more of a rally, and it's hard to say exactly how that continues up here. So there is some speculation, sort of woos up here of how do you trade up there. That's going to be a little bit more difficult, all right? So I would go where the difficulty is low. Take the trade that's there and obvious with support, which was the Ford trade. That was a very good trade if you weren't already in it to take today, right? Keep that in mind. The Codex trade, CODX. I mentioned this from open about the 18. This was over 13% today. Again, there was like 29 alerts that I wrote down. This was a trade you could take through the 18. Now, it would have been nice if you had captured it from this trend or from the entry yesterday, right? Now, we talked about this yesterday as well. Again, this is the bio play. We've been making bio plays. So when I see people mention tickers like SRNE or something, right, those are all a part of it. But do you want to be a part of something that's news-based and hype-based, or do you want to be a part of something that's technical-based that you can actually get a return without a downside risk of hype coming off? As soon as the hype is gone, the volume's gone, you no longer have the price move. This is all average price movement, all average volume price movement, technical. Keep it in your wheelhouse and what you can sort of control, right? You can't control other people's emotions and hype-based trading, but you can control something that's based off of levels and is not being sort of manipulated is not a good word, but certainly volume can manipulate price movement. And it's important to realize when that's the case. You'll see that volume chart spiking all over the place. That's not something that you can have any clue of what's going to happen in price movement, right? So keep that in mind. GNMK. Wow, man, I really wish you would give us some more alerts around this place because, you know, I'm having a hard time making money and I feel like you don't really help me very much. GNMK was a very nice open trade from the 15 and a half here. Now, this was a little bit too, let me show you. This was a little too obvious. This does happen. I was just talking about this earlier. Sometimes it's a little too obvious and it actually is difficult to enter. And this is a good example of a chart that all that happened was it trended up. It just trended up to the upside. And the only way you're entering this, not based off of me telling you to, is to know that based on that price action, that's bullish price action, right? Now, of course, anyone can say, oh yeah, that's going up in hindsight. But of course, in the moment, you're looking at each one of these candles develop and you're like, maybe it's going. Is it really breaking through here? Hard to tell. It tested, it pulled back in here. Maybe if you're watching on the 5-minute, let me show you on the 5-minute. You know, you're looking in here and you're like, well, the candles are pretty small. There's not much volume on this chart. It's hard to tell. It's sort of trading along it. Okay, for sure, right? And that's where you should be fully dailied out of your mind. Daily candle out of your mind. This is what you should be looking at. Otherwise, you are caught up in sort of that intraday price movement that you're not really sure what's going on because you can't look at all those candles over time, right? If we were looking at thousands of candles on every chart, we wouldn't be able to look at 1,000 charts a day, right? You'd look at 2 charts and you'd look at that. Do you want to look at 1,000 candles on one chart or do you want to look at one candle on 1,000 charts? That's probably the best way to look at it. Probably look at 1,000 charts instead of one chart for the same 1,000, right? That's probably a good way to look at it, and that's what we do. We look at as many charts as possible, find the price movement where it is, and go capture it if it's there or not, right? The AVYA position we talked about, trading between the trend lines, this is going to be really interesting for tomorrow to see if we're going to continue trading within this channel once again. I know it's hard for most people to trade these. This is not even something that is easy for me to trade. This sort of, you gap into a new level of supply and you're trading it between two new levels and you have to act like none of this happened, right? Those are difficult trades. I wouldn't worry about that. TDC, this was a great opening trade. Again, I really wish this guy would give us some more alerts. We talked about this trade since last week, trading into the supply, because again, we draw these patterns, we get trend lines, and then months and months later, they will end up reacting to the supply. First day, rejection. Second day, up to the second, opened on support today on the trend line. Great opening trade if you aren't already in. A great transition trade from yesterday, for today. Very nice trade there on TDC. Let's bring it back. CGC, I'm not going to really mention the individuals because they're with the MJ trade, but of course pot stocks continue. If you haven't been a part of the pot stock move, again, you're sort of avoiding something that everybody is aware of, just like clean energy and EVs. You're purposely avoiding this trade, and that's just something like you just have to figure out yourself. Of course, if you're not able to get this trade, it's because you're purposely not looking at it, right? These are trades that everyone's making. Now, I don't like to make trades that everyone makes, but if there's points on the table, of course, we're going to take it. We have been trading this for a very long time. Keep those in mind if you are avoiding charts. Something to keep in mind. RMED, of course, from open as well. We talked about the tightening here. We entered this trade. Now, you did get see this long upper shadow? It did look like we were actually going to put some significant points on. It held right in here in this level. Tomorrow, we could be seeing that move get attempted. You might get a little bit of this type of idea coming off this candle, sort of just a higher low, but not much price action. We'll see how that continues. Again, healthcare being very bullish. DQ continued, of course. EXPI continued, of course. Again, these charts that we've been trading for many months now continue to push the upside. These are trades, and I usually use these type of trades to say, or you guys know the meme with, yeah, let's go trade Boeing or AT&T or something instead of trading this one, right? Makes a lot of sense. Or Facebook. Let's go trade Facebook instead of the chart that just continues to put points on, and something that we can view and understand. Of course, once it's already made the move, you can't be like, well, can I buy it tomorrow? Be like, okay, what about like last week? All right, maybe you can buy it tomorrow, but you know what I mean. Let's keep it going. Enlock today. Another example, again, of converging supply. We did talk about this just recently. This idea of a move, first of all, we've had a few 2-bar reversals today. 2-bar reversal being one of the short-term patterns we look for with candles, where you have a downtrend leading into this candle here, this bearish candle, leading into a bullish candle that is of the same size, and it's then going to cause a new trend this way. So you look for a 2-bar reversal. This candle is, of course, significantly more than that, right? And instead of doing it over multiple days, it did it all in one day. A lot of this is because of supply. And we talk about this a lot, and I know the colors are red still, but that's where the resistance was. We talk about this where price will go through converging supply. So not only where you have horizontal supply, you have a trend line from the prior pattern. Price wants to gravitate to supply and through supply if it's converging. And through this here, when you break that last level of supply, then it's going to put even more points on. And I talk about this a lot. Once you break a level, you got to remember that it's basically hitting the reset button. You now, instead of having sellers, those are all buyers, you're removing that supply side of the equation, right? And now it's all demand. Prices, supply, and demand. What happens if you remove supply and all that's left is demand? Price goes up, and it goes up quickly. That's what we look for. That's why we track supply and demand. That's why we put these lines with, cute little colors on our chart. It's not to look pretty. It's to use them for trades and understand that based on how price works at the most basic level that you could teach a 5-year-old, supply and demand, that ratio, this is all it is, right? Now we're back on schedule for this. I couldn't tell you how the fundamentals look on this chart. I have no clue. And it doesn't matter, right? Purely technical. You can see the same ideas occurring here over and over in terms of patterns. Keep this in mind in terms of a day tomorrow. There's certainly more points here. It wants to come up here to this 23 level, should be able to trade it up there till tomorrow. We'll see how that looks. Something we're going to keep in mind. GoCo as well, from today at support. We bought on support today. This was one of the 29 alerts. Bought right here on support. This is a great sort of first day, 7%. Again, I think we get caught up, and I'm going to start to talk about maybe something else. Look at the profit section, see what you guys did here after this chart. I think we get caught up with some of our charts putting so many points on every day that we forget that 7% is a shit ton of money, right? Or at least a big gain, right? 7% is a big gain on the underlying chart in a day. You guys get excited when one of your charts that you care about so much goes up 1%, or you get a 1 minute candle that's up like 20 basis points, and I see you guys freak out in chat, right? McKeezus gets like 25 basis points on Tesla, and he's got to type it into chat because there's some 5 minute candle that went up, right? Those kind of situations, remember, you have to remove some of that connection to charts and that idea that you're connected to a chart and that's your chart. And you're the only guy in chat that posts the chart, and that makes you sort of the ambassador of the chart. That's not how trading works, right? We are not biased to any tickers, besides sometimes being biased to tickers we like, but it doesn't affect our trading, right? These charts that continue to put points on, yeah, it may not be like the chart you want to go up. Like if I'm a Facebook hater, of course, but if Facebook offers points, of course I'm going to trade it, right? I'm going to trade it. It means nothing. It doesn't mean anything, right? So we trade both ways, and again, remember the price points. 7% is a lot. On the options, 7% is probably a significant amount, right? So keep in mind some of these, and also the relation to other charts that we look at. We look at so many charts here that sometimes when we look at candles, we forget the sizing of the candle because some of the charts have such large candles. Give an example, right? We look at these. You start to lose sort of the contrast, and you have to sometimes move the chart like this. Okay, let's see. That looks like the average sizing in here, right? And then when you look at these candles, the contrast and the relation is actually so different, right? And sometimes we forget this, and we use actually these price moves and think that this is how price should be moving, and that's what we care about. That's a 45% candle. This was like a 50 to 60% from high to low. You got to be, keep it cool. Zoom continues as well. Let's take a look. What do we got in the profit section? I did see that Ecto got out of his NNDM bag holds that now, guess what? Closed for 100%. Nice job on that trade. I know that was a wild trade. Let's take a look at the chart, see what he closed at. Interesting that he closed today. But certainly 100% we'll take it. That's what we look for. That's what we looked for. Brian with the minus 200, and he's pissed. So he's coming back tomorrow with some heat, I'm imagining. And I could imagine with today, you could lose some on a stop day. But as long as those are positions being pushed, then I'd be all for it. C Trader with the 800. Very nice. Big, nice whole number. A great day. $800 a day will certainly, I don't know, you'll be all right. You won't be getting a stimulus check. Sorry. Matt with the 389, 18%. 18% is a big number. I like that. Shark with the minus 7. Effed up my no red February. Damn. He was going for the no red. I mean, February is the month of red. Valentine's Day coming up. Get your mom something, single guys. Get your mom something for Valentine's Day. You know what I'm saying? Nice numbers, guys. Nice numbers. Very nice. 0.07%. Nice. Again, if it's a transition day and everything, of course we're going to have days. Even my day on stop days always look very strange, especially those of you that have the problem that I have where you're sitting in this big unrealized position sometimes, and you're looking at the unrealized number from the day before, right? You close, and then nothing moves until the open, and then you're looking at the number, and it says you're down, like 10% on your whole portfolio, and you're looking at it like, wait a minute, you gotta be kidding me. I'm down like 10%, nothing's even happened yet? That can't be good. But then it's like, okay, well, I know why. And it's not because I'm about to lose all this money or something, right? Or the market's going down. It's a stop day. Matt says, and get me something for my birthday too. Interesting. We'll keep that in mind. In terms of questions, does anyone have any questions about what I talked about with the transitions earlier. I did post the video. I didn't get a chance to see if I I did it in only 15 minutes. I condensed it quite a bit. I'm sure there's more that we could go over. And again, doing it live and not really, who knows, guys? Like, I have no clue half the time what I'm actually spewing out to you, other than I'm trying to regurgitate what I'm thinking in the moment. And sometimes it turns into, gold. Sometimes it's like, okay, I don't really know what this guy's talking about, and you hit me with the verbiage thing. So I try to keep it simple. Sometimes it's gonna click, sometimes not. So feedback, of course, so I can make it a little bit easier. It was pretty basic this morning. I have some more examples I'm gonna show you guys as well. Review is gold. Okay. As long as it works. And again, the video's there if you didn't see. I talked about transitioning because we've talked a lot about transitioning. And one thing I do want to say to you guys that are in here now is remember that there is a level of difficulty and risk involved with doing that. So sometimes you need to, this is where I talk about strength and weaknesses. Sometimes it's going to be better for some of you to just push that position and do nothing, because you know that the more you touch a position and the more you manage it, the higher of a chance you are going to screw it up, right? If you're in a great position and you got a great entry and you are up already, for some of you, you shouldn't touch it. You know that you're going to ride it until there's any type of reversal, and then you're going to take profit, and that's it. For half the people in this chat, that is certainly the case, I would say. I would certainly say for half the people in the chat, they should not be managing, and everyone knows who they are. If you're busy at working, you don't have the time to manage a trade and to try to figure out the best way to perfect it. Not everything needs to be perfection when you don't have time. If you don't have the time to perfect something, then you're never going to make it perfect. If something's good enough and a return's good enough, then it's good enough, right? So make sure that you're not over-managing. I talk about it a lot, so, we'll see. What makes the upper wick on NVIDIA bullish? AMD has an upper wick as well, but wouldn't that be a bearish short-term pattern? Good question. Let's take a look at the relation between those two. That is certainly something to keep in mind. So in terms of this candle, yes, it can certainly be bearish having a candle like this, and a lot of times I will post something like this on bearish short term. So if we look at the AMD candle that he's also talking about here, this type of move, it again depends on the trend leading into the candle. This could be the idea of exhaustion, right? Upper wicks sometimes with the upper shadow can be a bit of an idea of an exhaustion due to the fact that and it would be on the NVIDIA candle. AMD doesn't really have the uptrend. It would be this uptrend. You have the big buy day, and today's the take profit day. And yeah, this is a bit bearish. But guess what we do know about this candle that the candle doesn't know itself and by itself is that through this, we have a breakout of supply. We first of all broke our trend line here. We know we've exited this consolidation now. We've finally exited this consolidation. We broke our horizontal resistances. We are pretty close to our all-time high up here. We had a 6.5% day yesterday, a big buy day, right? Relatively, this is the largest candle that we've seen it's actually the largest candle that we've seen all in a year. It looks like it. This is the largest candle we've seen since right here back in August. So in about a year, it's the largest candle we've seen in terms of a buy day. What did we say yesterday? We knew we were going to get a take profit and stop day today. So because of that, that's why you get this sort of bearish candle here, right? That's just for today. Does it mean anything for tomorrow, though? That's where this idea of short-term patterns come in. Does this candle override the overall bullishness of, first of all, this big breakout from this consolidation? This pattern, of course, overweighs any short-term patterns, which would be, an example would be this candle. I was waiting if anyone would say, what about this candle? Take a look at this candle. It's the same idea of a candle. What does this candle mean? And we talked about it on that day. That being a sort of a short-term bearish candle, even though it doesn't really have the trend, let's just call it one, this is actually bids testing the break. It's testing a breakout, and we like to see that for bullishness. The the demand side testing levels and to see if it can break forward is a big part. And I talk about the higher high and lower and higher lows idea. Same with over here. You have a higher low and a higher high. That is in this major pattern sense and over in the overall bias being bullish, right? Short-term and long-term bullish. That idea is continuing the bullish idea. It does not change the bias. It actually is proving the point, even through the fact that you knew you were going to have a take profit day today. You only lost 1%. This is a take profit day, but it does not mean that it's going to now turn into a new downtrend. This is not the end of the trend here because of that candle. This candle was just a take profit day. It is by itself. It stands alone. It doesn't actually create the pattern idea where nope, this trend's over because this candle says so, right? It's not the same idea because again, the overall, if you did a scale of bullishness on this chart, if we did an overall scale of how bullish is this chart, you would add this consolidation with the breakout. So you broke out of a big pattern that we can track. We look at the uptrend from the prior channel. This is a very bullish uptrend. We know there's a significant amount of points up here. We know that all of the supply has been broken. All that is left is the all-time. The all-time high is the only thing left. So if we put it in terms of a scale of points, let's give 10 points to the bullish side. Also the sector. Sector's very bullish. Sector's very bullish. Give it 11. What about this short-term day here? -1. Give it a -1. It's very bullish. And this is where, just the last point. When we think about this upper shadow, it's pushing towards the upside. It's an attempt on a day that we knew was going to be take profit to begin with. We knew this candle was going to be here to begin with. Instead of it just being a sell day, it actually tests the upside, and which means that there's more people that are willing to pay up there, even though you knew it was going to sell today, right? And so in terms of the AMD chart, AMD was already bearish to begin with. AMD was bearish to begin with, and on a take profit day, it's just reacting in the same way. The difference here is that the overall chart is not bullish. The sector's bullish, and it made a similar bullish move yesterday, which is why it made a similar take profit day today to the sector. But overall, this chart is not as bullish as NVIDIA, UMC, TSM, right? The solar tickers that we include in the semiconductor space. So here, I would say that this candle actually is leading to more of this downtrend. If you take a look at this trend here, it's not exact, but you can see that this is continuing this move. And if we bring this over here, it's really just sticking within this channel, right? You're getting a bit of this channel continued, and really it's this flag that it's just continued that. This might actually lead to a bit of a downturn, which we could call it we know it's a bearish candle, and due to the fact that this is, let's say that this chart in terms of like a whole weighting is, let's say like -3, -4 in terms of bearishness. This is also a -1 candle. Well, now it just got more bearish, right? And that type of thing. We can use this idea of weighing overall bullish bearishness and how much does that candle actually move the overall. NVIDIA, it's not moving it at all. AMD, it might be making it a little bit more to the downside. Again, that's not to say that, I even said it here, that you could get another day that you get 2 candles that stop and take profit and then it goes. Of course, you could get that on NVIDIA as well. But still, I wouldn't really call it a change of a trend because you've made a breakout. And that's, let me give you one good example I can think of. Here, I'm going to make a very obvious example. I'm going to make an extremely obvious example. It would be something like Tesla, and it would be saying that one of these candles in the trend is bearish, right? Maybe we can find one that's obvious. It would be like a bearish candle. Is this candle, since it's bearish, going to lead to a downturn? Right? This candle here would certainly a bearish candle. Is this candle here going to lead to an end of this trend? Right. Well, the overall bullishness of this chart from back here is it's significantly bullish. Does this one candle here stop the trend? No one would say so. No. It's just a take profit day from this entire move here, because this is what? How many points is this? That's 55%. 55% compared to a 2% take profit day, right? It's always relative, right? How much does the candle actually matter? Probably not much. Probably not much, right? Oh, I didn't mention the dollar. Sorry, guys. The dollar continued to break down. Sorry, that's the one thing I forgot to mention. The dollar itself continued to break down from open. We saw this is value. We again talked about the downside is correlated to value going up. This is going to get interesting overnight. This is going to get interesting overnight as price continues. Again, this move will get continued. Whether again it comes back and bounces on the level to go further, it's going to get interesting over there. So the same applies to TIVA because it's a bullish chart overall. Okay, this is an interesting question as well. What are we looking at on TIVA? Well, first of all, you couldn't draw more lines on this chart if you wanted to. You can try to draw more, and we're going to probably draw more tonight. So keep that in mind. Over here, maybe what we can do is I'm going to turn the graphics off because it's a little hard to look at. Okay, TIVA, obviously bullish, right? I mean, obviously bullish, heading to the upside. Now you have some supply coming in up here. And you actually tested the high up here. So you could, first of all, call this wick a gravitation towards supply, trying to test the high up here. And, it's like 1330 or something up here. So that's the start of it. Now you have this uptrend, very bullish. You've had a little bit of a consolidation in here. Yesterday and today have been the breakout candles that we would look at, right? These are the candle yesterday was about 4%. We talked about it as being the breakout of these highs. Today confirms that break because you didn't lose points. You actually continued higher low, higher high. This upper shadow is, in some senses, you could call this an uptrend, and then this is a bit of an exhaustion, and you get that like shooting star vibe, right? This idea that, okay, well, you didn't break through, so now it's going to come back down. That can be true, and again, it depends. But since the overall bullishness of this chart and what we know about the chart, this is actually price trying to break on, again, a take profit day in the market. I think it's important to keep this in mind that the whole market we knew would be having a stop day. Did we not say it yesterday, right? We said it yesterday that today would be that stop day in the market, sitting on the trend. You're going to see that on the average, and you're going to have the average built up of these type of charts that you still attempted, though, on the take profit day for the bid. So I would call this overall a bullish candle because of the volatility added and for the attempt to break out, right? This would be the candle. So if this was the daily candle, this right here, again, would be the similar idea of, well, isn't this a bearish candle? Because it wasn't able to break. And so you can see it here, right? You had this uptrend. You had the bearish candle, the attempt to break through, but price pulled back down. It closed even lower. See the difference on this candle? See how that candle's red, the other candle's green? That's because price didn't close below the open of the candle. This candle, it did. It closed. It went up, right? How does this candle get built? It opened, pushed to the upside, and then pushed to the downside, right? That's what happened on this candle. Opened, pushed to the upside, and then to the downside. And so then it leads to the downside. What does the daily candle look like? Price opened, and there you go. It closed above, making it green, right? Pushed up, closed above. So even though it pulled back, it actually still closes above, and so you're continuing the move. And this is where that relative sense comes in of, okay, how much is this candle relative to the move? And this is about 1% on the day. For a take profit day and a stop day, that's pretty damn good. Because think about it, this was about a 4% day. In terms of a take profit day across the market, usually you're covering half that candle on a stop day. So although it was a smaller candle to begin with, I would still say that this upper shadow, all the upper shadow in the high wick are bids. How do you make an upper wick? It's bids. And if you're going to do that on a day that traditionally, from just looking at it from the day before even, you know there's going to be a bit of a stop and take profit, then you have some serious buyers, and the idea here is to continue that move. And I mean, look at this chart overall. I mean, I would find it hard pressed to find anyone that would say that this week would close lower, right? And so that's something to keep in mind, right? Something to keep in mind. And the thing again to remember about when you're looking at charts and the candles is that it's not so much the individual candle that matters, right? It's not so much the individual candle, it's the entire picture that matters. And that's why even on the short-term patterns, right? If I just let me bring the screen over to Discord. This will be the wrap-up. The wrap-up here. If I bring the screen over here, if you go over to the patterns over here, right? When you think about, let's go to the candle that we were just talking about. Oh, let's go to bearish. Let's go to the bearish and go to something like this, right? The thing to remember about how these candles work is it's not the candle by itself. It's the overall price move itself. And so you have an uptrend that leads into the bearish candle, an uptrend that leads into the bearish candle, an exhaustion bar like we're talking about right now, where there's some exhaustion on the bid side and it closes to the downside. Trend leads into the bearish candle. Engulfing line, which we've seen on a few charts, but to the opposite way, right, to the bullish side, you have a trend that leads into it. So again, same on the bullish side, you have a downtrend that leads into a candle that should lead to a bullish move, right? Hammer. How many times have we seen hammers turn into perfect entries, right? We talk about this where price opens, pulls back, and then closes higher. We look for these things, right? We look for these, and again, the engulfing line that we saw a lot today, for instance, this type of price action, again, it's not one candle. It's actually an entire trend, short-term trend leading into the candle that makes it bullish. So remember that because, again, it's easy to look at one candle and try to look at the intraday move itself and act like you understand what exactly is going on there. But a lot of the times it's actually an entire move itself that actually makes up what makes it bullish or bearish in the short term. And that's where I talk about a chart being short-term bullish in the short term or longish in the long term, or bullish in the long term. And sometimes it depends, right? And Jesus, can we get rid of some of these lines, man? That chart on Tiva. Oh, you guys didn't see it because I have the wrong screen up, but that chart on Tiva is beginning a little ridiculous, right? Anyways, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for the day. In terms of tomorrow, I would say since we had the take profit today, all we're looking for is does the market open bid today, for tomorrow in the open, is the market opening bid, or are we going to continue the stop and take profit? In terms of what you should be doing, a lot of it should just come down to managing your positioning and pushing your positioning. If you're in February's, again, you should have already transitioned to March's most likely. Otherwise, new entries, I wouldn't be chasing. I'd be entering charts that, again, are offering new upside because there's a lot of charts that are coming back to they were lagging and they're now catching up to their sector. Those are charts to be looking for. And also the main component of what we do are breakouts. The new bullish charts that I post every night have continued to be the biggest gains that we see every week since about 2 weeks ago. Those new charts are the ones to be watching if you're not already in positions and you're looking to make money. And I want to just say with that, excuse me, those of you that want to continue to trade your own charts and you're like, well, I like the charts I've got, man, and I'm just using your ideas on my own charts. And then you also go into the chat and say, well, I don't have as much time, and since I work full time, I can't really. If you work full time or you don't have as much time as I do to look at charts, then do not act like you have a better chart, right? That's the reality. I do not act like I have more information than an institution, so I don't go trade that way, right? Use the charts I have, draw the levels on your charts, right? Don't try to jinx yourself with this idea that since I post a chart, you can't use it now. I would specifically use those because those are the charts that are actually making moves that you could trade. I'm not sharing them for the hell of it, right? Now, they're just the charts I use for myself. It's not, again, when you go in here, I do want to, since we do have the camera up here, I do want to mention that obviously the charts I post in here are for myself and I'm just sharing them. And so some of these are not going to be for you, right? Some of these charts are not for you. When you think about some of these charts, you're going to know whether or not it's something you can trade, right? Some of these are pretty difficult to trade. You know the ideas I talk about when we're in the stream together. I talk about retail stores, right? This is a trade you can make, right? Urban retail stores, you know you can make that kind of trade, right? So keep in mind exactly what it is that you have control of, what your advantage is, what your weaknesses are, what you can actually do. Don't try to kid yourself on some things, and you're gonna do okay, right? You're gonna do all right. So yeah, identify yourselves exactly. So keep those ideas in mind, and watch out for the charts tonight. I will see you guys in the morning. So have a good evening, morning, night, wherever you are, and I'll see you guys a little bit later in the morning. Have a good one.